And I'm going to start the bidding here at £5 million. £5 million, £5,500,000, £6 million now, £6 million, £6,500,000, £7 million now,
We're down and out.
£7
In the art world. We're down and out. We're down and out. We're down and out. In the art world. We're down and out. We're down and out. We're down and out. In the art world.
Hey, hi. Welcome again to Down and Out in the Art World. I'm Mike Watson here with Bobby Dowler, and we're going to talk about memes and the art world today. Are memes the new art world? Okay, so we're here broadcasting on the Theory Wave Nights Twitch channel, which will then go on the Theory Wave Nights YouTube. Anyhow, today we're here to talk about memes and the art world. Bobby is going to be going through a few meme accounts with me. The first one we're going to look at is called Freeze. So Freeze magazine, it's a spoof of Freeze magazine, but spelled as in Freeze, F-R-I-E-Z-E, like this kind of like, decorative pattern that goes around a room. That would be a frieze. And Freeze magazine's been going since the 90s, I believe. It's a very popular, successful magazine which also runs an art fair, and was begun by two people who worked in the City of London. And they certainly said in interviews I read, I'm not sure if it's a line they still push, but they said that they basically they started this magazine to appeal to people like them, because the art world, I guess, seemed kind of boring and stifled. At that point, they wanted to appeal to young, affluent people such as themselves who are looking to engage in art and I guess perhaps buy some art. And they very much defined the art world from then on, maybe morphing themselves as they've gone along to suit an art world that's become in many ways more political. But at the same time, that political art world has always been kind of superficial. So it's been quite easy, I think, for this magazine with let's say very commercial values to kind of embrace the political turn of the art world, and a number of kind of movements that have come out of that, including Me Too and a turn towards talking about social class in the art world in recent years. So anyway, this is a spoof of that magazine, so it's very clear to anyone who is into art that this refers to Freeze magazine, and the irreverent nature of the memes kind of clashes with Freeze's very, how can we say it, this kind of sincere nature of caring about art and caring about issues pertinent to art. And also, of course, the very uncurated nature of memes in the sense that memes are something that anyone can make, anyone can like and comment on, whereas the art world is very much about expertise, about stratification, about different levels of artists who are liked to different degrees and revered to different degrees. So having a meme account about art kind of inverts that, because the thing with memes is immediately that one senses when you think about art is that they do this thing of being very democratic that art kind of pertains to, or should we say art ostensibly embodies. The art world ostensibly embodies this idea of democracy and art for all. And the meme sphere kind of does this, but much better. So it's very contradictory. It's very much a parody of Freeze magazine and the art world. Just the fact of having art, on a meme account, and then particularly obviously calling it Freeze. So Bobby, any thoughts on those first comments?
Yeah, I think it's quite interesting to note how many followers he has, because the art world is a relatively small industry. I don't know how many people it's made up of. I mean, maybe like a guess could be like 500k maximum. I don't know. I mean, it's a relatively small thing, right? And this guy has 120 followers.
120,000.
120,000, yeah, sorry. And obviously quite prolific. It seems like he's making these memes quite quickly. Some of them are clearly very lame, but I guess that's like part of his aesthetic, right?
Yeah, I mean, and also he's using a lot of meme formats that are common meme formats that are literally memes, like this here, um, this reaction meme. So it's a very basic meme, but it's one that maybe has become so popular because it's very easy to kind of understand. But yeah, also there's a very rough aesthetic. I mean, he's not pulling out any stops. He or she, they're not pulling out any stops. Aesthetically, yeah, I think that is, you're right there. Actually, it runs up against the very kind of clean aesthetic of the contemporary art world, really pushed by Frieze. You really get the feeling that very clean aesthetic is something that Frieze has kind of fostered. And actually, people talk about, like, the Frieze art fair look, or people who kind of disdain the very clean, easy to sell kind of vibe of certainly kind of some of the art. A lot of the art that's come out in the last 20 years, they talk about Frieze. They sort of say, this Frieze aesthetic. So yeah, this goes in the other direction very much. Yeah. So let's just maybe look at some of these, and they might kind of give us some talking points. I mean, we could start almost anywhere. Let's start. Okay, well, there you are. I mean, that kind of throws us right in at the deep end because it's Karl Marx. And it says, if you want to change the art world, seize the means of production and become a collector. So, I mean, on the first instance, so it's saying if you want to change the art world, you need to seize the means of production. So it appears to be very much a meme about the way that the art world has become kind of criticized, the way people talk about the need to change the art world because it's very hypocritical. We talked about this quite a lot. There's a lot of talk about politics and the need to share wealth and extend culture for all, but actually it's a very closed world that ties in very closely with the world of finance and finance capitalism, and speculative finance. So this is saying, well, if you really want to change it, you need to put your money where the mouth is and seize the means of production, which would normally mean you then nationalize those means or give them to the workers in some way, and then the workers take the profits. But then it says, and become a collector. So it's kind of, there's an irony there that that inverts what's being said. So rather than seizing the means of production in a sense of in a communist sense, it says become a collector. So I guess basically as a capitalist, if you want to change the art world, seize the means of production, i.e. the artworks, the art materials, and own it.
Okay, so I have a question. So who do you think should be deciding and taking care of important cultural artifacts? Should it be like the state, or in like a from a sort of like, I don't know, what would be the communist perspective, or what is the left wing perspective compared to the capitalist system which is prevailing in the West? But I mean, of course, countries do have their own, like the UK and France, like they do have their the states do collect as well, right? Art is owned by the people,
for sure.
in a way.
There is a lot of art that's owned by the state, yeah, in many countries, yeah. I mean, I think it's pretty much a given that, yeah, okay, well, it's a given that the museums should be state, but the national museums should be state-run, or there should be state-run national museums which are publicly funded. And that works very well and can lead to free museum access, as we have in London for some museums. Often museums like the National Gallery in Trafalgar Square or Tate Modern, they have large public collections which are free to get into. Then they tend to have a show which you have to pay to get into, which is enabled partly from the ticket entrance fees for the. I don't think that doesn't make any sense because there are no ticket entrance fees. Anyway, the ticket entrance fees for those shows which are ticketed, the fees I guess cover the cost of running the show. Is what I meant. So I mean, that works very well. I mean, it's pretty rare. I don't know other countries where it's just totally free to get in the National Museum. Is that the case in France?
Yeah, similar. I mean, for example, you have something called the Maison des Artistes. So, artists, if they are members of that, then they can go to most of the exhibitions free, I believe.
Yeah, okay. I haven't been there for a long time. When I went to Paris, like last time, I'm sure nearly everything costs something. Like the Louvre costs a lot of money, doesn't it, to get in? Or is there a free? Is there a free section?
I'm not quite sure, but I think if you're part of like this sort of artist or association, which is kind of like government, thing, or if you're unemployed, then you can go to exhibitions for free, I believe. But again, there are some private museums as well. I'm not sure if the same applies there, but possibly it does. But just going back to this meme, so is it making fun of the art world, or is it making fun of Marx, like the Marxist elements in the art world?
I think it's pointing out a contradiction. In that, you hope that's what that would mean. You hope that the statement "seize the means of production" would mean take control of the means of producing art, and then nationalize it so they were available to anyone. And here it kind of inverts that. So you're kind of going along with that, saying if you want to change the art world, then you seize the means of production, make the means of art production available to all. And you're like, okay, nice left-wing statement. Then it suddenly says, and become a collector. So I think it's making fun of the art world's hypocrisy. But I think also, I guess the joke's on left-wing people who would be like, yeah, right on, Marxist meme. And then they get halfway and they're like, oh shit, actually, it's become inverted and it's like a super capitalist meme because it's suggesting collectors should own the means of production. So in a way, I guess the joke's on everybody. I mean, it's not uncommon for a meme that it just plays with your head. But the thing that it does is it gets conversation going. So there are a number of comments here, and there's 2,300 likes. So, I mean, no doubt there are perhaps even tens of thousands of people who've seen the meme. So anyone who's read it through and understands the terminology on a very basic level, I guess, will at least be provoked to think about who should own the means of production in the art world. And you asked me that question I didn't fully answer: who should own the art, and who should have the patrimony of art? I mean, I think it works very well when the state owns important artworks and puts them on view to the public for free, as I'm saying happens in the UK with the major collections, without any kind of discrimination. I mean, it's basically that they're free for everyone. The large part of the National Gallery, apart from the temporary shows and the Tate, etc. I mean, that isn't the case in certainly Italy, where it costs just a stupid amount of money to get into the major museums like the Maxi Museum, the Modern Art Museum of the State in Rome, the Macro, which is the kind of communal, so like the city-run museum, contemporary art museum in Rome, and all the other kind of collections like the Galleria Borghese, the Vatican. They all cost, for an Italian, and a decent amount of money, because you're often talking like 15 euros upwards to get into these things, and wages aren't high and jobs are scarce. So actually, I mean, the average artist I knew couldn't really afford to regularly get into, these kind of spaces. In Finland, actually, the prices are obscene. I mean, Finland is known as having a nice, welfare system, education system, etc. But the museums, the prices are off-putting. I can get in as a critic if I write to the press people and say, can I get in to look at your art? But I prefer not to do it because I don't actually want to write reviews that much. So, I prefer not having the pressure of these press people following me up. for a review after I've seen the show, unless I really want to write on it. So I actually get put off going in to these places because they're costing nearly €20 for the Athenaeum, which is the kind of similar to the National Gallery in London. It has a lot of 20th century, 19th century painting. It has a good Van Gogh, however you want to say it. So yeah, prices can be prohibitive in many places. So I think the state running the museums is a good idea. But what strictly is said here is actually the means of production, which would mean actually paintbrushes, canvases, anything else you make art with. And then what that would enable is for people who can't afford art materials, so that they can make art, to also become artists. So it wouldn't just be people who were rich or clever at getting corporate or sponsorship or money off collectors who could make big artworks. It would be anybody. So then potentially you free up people who might have brilliant ideas but don't know how to get the money. So Damien Hirst has been brilliant at getting money from collectors and other sources, corporations, etc., to make very ambitious artworks right from when he was a student. Things like sharks in formaldehyde, the famous Damien Hirst pieces, and I think that's fair play to him. But should it be only people who have the savvy to get money, who to get money from materials, who are able to make big artworks? I mean, Michelangelo obviously sustained a good relationship with various patrons and some including popes. Including various popes, which is how he managed to end up painting the Sistine Chapel. And the popes at the time were hugely powerful people. They were equivalent to leaders of states, leaders of governments today. And you could say again, fair play too. He must have had a way of getting on with these people, even though he was notoriously difficult. Partly, I think the popes just liked him because he was so good at making art. But still, there are a number of people who historically who possibly just haven't been able to get the money for the big works or get the big commissions. And is it not possible that a number of these people are really super talented, and that artistic talent doesn't go hand in hand with getting on with powerful people? I mean, what would you say about that?
I think it's a combination of the most articulate person probably sort of wins commissions, etc., wins in those relationships. It's not just about like visual articulation, it's also about doing that in words, and in that sense there is a bit of kind of almost salesmanship to that. And I think some people that have that are particularly sort of smart, I guess, are able to go into some situations and in a sort of more of a long game way of thinking about it. So I guess like someone like Michelangelo, I think that he would have had strategy and he knew what he wanted. I don't think that he was particularly, politically driven, but I might be wrong there. But I think that he's smart. I mean, almost. I wouldn't go as far as to say that he was Machiavellian, but he was certainly aware of like power structures and knew what to say at the right time. And of course, in the end, bowled people over or won people over with what he'd made when he showed them the stuff, right?
Well, that's for sure. Then that's true. Yeah, I mean, I don't also know if we could call him political. I don't know an awful lot about Michelangelo personally, although I have been to the Sistine Chapel like hundreds of times because I was a basically unofficial tour guide in the Vatican for a couple of years. So I know his work. But yeah, he certainly had a way of getting on with the elite. But the question, I suppose, is that what you do if you don't have that, because a lot of gifted artists are very they're very timid people. They're introverted. I mean, I think he was also awkward, and I think he didn't have a brilliant kind of social manner. but obviously he had a way of playing it. Yeah, but maybe not everyone is as lucky as him. But of course, we could argue that not everyone is as talented as Michelangelo, which is certainly true. So he might be an extreme case. But it's talking about in general. I mean, because this is what we mean by seizing the means of production, would be making the means of becoming an artist in the first place available to more people. I think there is something to be said for that, because there are so many people who, with so many impediments to them being creative, just don't really get out there because they haven't got the money. They come from a family that's poor. They haven't been maybe taken to museums as a kid, because the family's poor. And even if the museums are free, the family, if they're poor, are not probably thinking, let's go to the museum, because they have certain pressures on them. So, by making the means of producing art available to everyone, and I suppose by that you would have to include education, you make it possible that the next great artists can emerge. Or you widen the pool from which the next great artists can emerge. But that's arguably what's happened to some degree in the last, since some point in the last century. Education for all started in the 1800s, but arts education for all, on any serious level, must have been post-war. I would guess from the 60s, 70s onwards. And so that's the thing, though. This is maybe contradictory because, and this is quite kind of handy how we end up talking about this now, because it relates to memes. Is that if you widen the pool of artists, does that increase the quality of art produced? Because certainly the art world now is a lot bigger than it was in the 70s. I mean, you were saying the art world in total could number 500,000 people. I'd be inclined to agree if you're counting people actually employed in the art world and artists who actually get shows. I guess it would have been, considering also art as we know it was primarily a Western construct that wasn't made and exhibited in the same way in non-Western countries. Going back to the 70s, 80s, you're talking about maybe 100,000 people or less, possibly much less. So we have many more people now involved in making art and distributing it and showing it, writing about it, etc. Does that make the art better? I don't know. I mean, because that's partly the question we're probably going to get to with memes as well, because anyone can make a meme and put it out there. Does that increase the quality of what's being produced? I mean, actually, a lot of it's crap, and it probably interferes with people really learning to make art because they're just producing these stupid memes and distributing them instead. Anyway, what do you think about that? Any reflections on whether art necessarily is getting better or what?
Mm-hmm. I think it's too early to tell whether it's actually getting better or not, but certainly, it seems that if more people are able to make the work, then you're going to have more diverse art being made. But it is always interesting to observe as well, in tandem with history, wars and technology, scientific innovations, what is actually happening in the artistic, cultural realm at the same time. For example, right now in France, I believe that the thing which is being studied at university the most is psychology. And one might ask, why in particular is that? I mean, I think that you probably need to be quite, on the open side to be wanting to study something psychology, and very much so with art as well. Are people becoming more open, or are we sort of, is it something to do with the capitalist Western world? And which also begs the question, where did memeing, begin? And is it like part of, is it part of like the Western, is it accelerating the Western capitalist tradition? And obviously it's got something to do with digital technology, but could you just give us like a brief history perhaps, Mike, about, where you think like these memes, where they came from, what would have been, I mean, you have, let's say you have this sort of Russian propaganda style, constructivist, works, I guess they were constructivist works, where they have texts and they have images, and it's also quite radical and interesting. It's not like exactly social realism because it has words on it as well. Do you know the kind of work I'm talking about? They have quite
Yeah,
a big collection of
Russian
that in the Tate.
early Soviet propaganda posters and stuff like that, or you mean the actual like paintings, Malevich and such like. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Certainly, you can relate that, I suppose, to the conversation we're having in terms of the democratization of art, because it was art that was made in line with revolutionary politics. But I want to, in terms of talking about the progression of memes, I want to go back a bit. I mean, I would go back to actually where the church split off from, or when art split off from the church. So art was totally in the service of the Christian church for centuries. So there was no such thing as an art that is free and autonomous and expresses some notion of freedom in the way we treat art today. Or certainly there was no notion of the romantic free artist in the sense there is today. Art was very much about promoting the messages of the powerful, and they would be about religion, or they would be portraits of the powerful themselves, or maybe images of battles. But they would be telling a narrative related to power. And at some point, you had a breakaway from this. I would say in parallel with Enlightenment. So we're talking late Renaissance to the 1800s. You have this kind of playing out where artists began to depict things other than the church and other kind of sanctioned kind of myths from ancient Greek, ancient Greek myth. You had a breaking away from these kind of these portrayals of religious and academic subjects. And I would say that the history of art ever since then has been one of taking art off its pedestal, of art stopping being something that's to preserve of the rich, that tells the stories of the powerful, and starting to be something that could tell potentially anyone's story, or it could be used for anyone's kind of aims. And you see this going on through Impressionism, post-Impressionism. So Impressionism is very kind of scientific, and it looks kind of expressive. So you look at an Impressionist painting, you're like, is that not something a bit like Van Gogh? But actually, the idea with Impressionism is to try and copy the process by which the human brain captures and interprets nature and light. But then you get into kind of post-Impressionism and Expressionism, and that's a move away from that. But Impressionism, where it kind of relied on scientific methods, or tried to apply what we know of science to making paintings of nature, that's already a break away from the church. So it's already radical, because you're moving away from a concern with God to a concern with science. Then post-Impressionism and Expressionism, it starts to deal with how do you portray emotions through paint, through different uses of color, light and dark, etc. So you're getting a further breakaway, and it becomes very unacademic, very nothing to do with power structures, nothing to do with elite kind of forms of knowledge. You're just dealing with how do you capture the human state. This is what you get onto with people like Cézanne, and then this is kind of further developed by Van Gogh. Then you get on to, let's get away from even the painting. Let's get away from even this kind of, the sanctity of the art object. And you get on to Duchamp and his radical break when he starts to just take objects and declare them to be art. So he takes this urinal and this bottle rack for storing empty wine bottles, or bottles in general, and basically, says this can be art. So you get into a whole new kind of world. We don't even need skill as such. So Duchamp would say you do need to be a trained artist with an artist's eye. Then you get on to Joseph Beuys later, and Beuys says, is a German artist who said, I think he first said it in the 60s, we are all artists. So you get, anyway, I'm going on and on, but you get this kind of thing of, taking away art from the experts, from the artists with training, and giving it to the people. Okay, so then you get to memes. You're getting to a point where anyone can say anything. But the memic element, coming from Richard Dawkins writing in the 70s in a book called The Selfish Gene, basically just means a cultural message which spreads from person to person. So it could be something you say, it could be a fashion code, could be an image, but it's something which is like spreads like a virus. So it's like a gene, in fact, because genes spread from person to person, DNA. But Dawkins said this also happens with cultural messages. So he invented this word meme based on a Latin word which meant to copy, and that's what we've been left with. But I'd also go back to another strand, which is the Salon des Refusés, which was a large exhibition held in the 1800s in Paris, where basically the artists were annoyed because you could only become a famous artist if you showed in the annual Academy show. There was an annual show of the Academy there, the Art Academy, which would basically dictate who then got a collector, who then sold to collectors, or then got a gallerist, etc. And a number of artists who were doing interesting things, but were never going to be chosen by the very stifled, dry, conservative, academic evaluators. These artists complained, and the king, well, I guess you would call it the emperor of the time, he basically understood what was going on and wanting to be popular and appeal to the people, and seeing this kind of clash between the Academy and these new, actually post-impressionist artists like Cézanne. He said, well, let's have a show of everyone who's been refused entry to the Academy. So you had this massive show of people who weren't able to get into the official, kind of sanctified show selected by experts. And a lot of it was, crap, and some of it was good. But famously, the public who went to see this, their reaction often was to laugh at the things they were seeing, partly because you weren't seeing these restrained messages related to identifiable religious or mythic themes. You were seeing unrestrained portrayals of normal people, and also nudity, but not related to myths. So you no longer had this kind of excuse that you're seeing these things because they relate to a certain narrative that's linked to the official power structure. So it had a big effect. So I think they're the kind of different strands of the democratization of arts. And the meme culture is definitely an inheritor of this, but so is the art, and so is an art world where you have, tens of thousands of artists now, with galleries making something for their art more than, a handful, more than a few thousand, maybe 20, 30 years ago. So, yeah, that was very long, excuse me. But yeah, does that leave you, does that answer your question, or does that throw up any?
That was good, and I think that would be helpful for everyone. So like a meme in a way is like it's a cross pollination of left-wing tradition, artistic tradition, propaganda, political propaganda tradition, and obviously digital technology. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I would say it's like this tendency to democratize the arts, which actually always is kind of a little bit derailed. But there's this impulse to take the arts. It's easier to say to take art away from experts, away from the elite, and give it to everyone.
Yeah,
which is always offset. It's always offset a bit by the need of some people to to feel that art is exclusive and to feel that they're part of that exclusive system. So you have this kind of tendency, and then the art world's kind of opens up a bit, but then still closes down again in some other way. So it's like anyone can come to our museums, but there's a special part of the art world that you need special entry to, and you need special codified languages to understand. So it's kind of weird, and that's kind of where memes come in, because they do they engage with this kind of democratization of culture, but they don't have this kind of this closing back down, which occurs on behalf or is led by certain critics, curators, collectors, artists who want to feel that they're superior to other people. In the meme sphere, you can't really have that, although you do have pockets of people who think they're super cool, and they promote certain memes, and they say, haha, that meme that you're using is old by now. They want to point to other people making memes and kind of feel that they are above them. So in a way, they emulate the contemporary art world, but outside of it. but they can't really do that because I don't think there's no way you can fundamentally claim that there is an officialized sphere of memes. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, I was just thinking now, actually, like with some of these memes, even the one that we were looking at, I was kind of thinking, like, when he says seize the means of production, it almost like, is that a pun? Means, could it be like memes? You know,
Well, yeah,
the
pun is the other way around. That you do have people, you do have this kind of saying seize the memes of production, which is also a book co-edited by Alfie Bound that came out, which you actually won a copy of, which you never actually got in your hands because you won it when I ran a meme competition once, and you somehow won the meme competition, and you won a copy of my book and a copy of this book called The Memes of Production, which is probably what you're recalling, kind of. But there is this interplay between this seizing the means of production, seizing the memes, and there's go on.
Also, I just wanted to say with Duchamp, you know, this where Duchamp famously defaces a reproduction of the Mona Lisa, and it has this sort of at the bottom of it, it has the letters. What is it? LH something GQ, but it translates it in French as, you know, it has the sound of she has a hot ass.
LH for English speakers. I think you were like pronouncing it. You're pronouncing the French alphabet, but it's LHOO, whatever it is, GQ or whatever. We can bring it up here.
Yeah, that could be
what would you call it? Hang on, you call it like Duchamp? Oh, Duchamp Mona Lisa.
Yeah.
It was a good, like, irreverent moment of irreverent moment in the art world, but also I think it got copied multiple times, didn't it? There were variations of it, so
yeah,
that would be a meme.
The thing about Duchamp on these works is that they have so many different layers to them and complexities. And what is kind of in contrast, what's interesting about the memes is that they are very pop. At the same time, they're very Warholian in a sense. You know, they're very surface.
Yeah. Well, this is true. Yeah. Well, yeah. I suppose that has fed into memes. What's happening here? Hyperallergic trying to get my email address. I don't know why. I should have arrived here, but because this is where we could see the image of Duchamp's appropriation of the Mona Lisa, but we can't because we don't have enough internet. Hang on. But I think people are getting the idea of what's happening here, or people possibly remember this piece. All right, I don't know what's happening there. We're not allowed in Russian, perhaps. All right. So anyway, it was that Duchamp. People could see that. I mean, I think this just very glib, kind of very direct aesthetic that Duchamp used, which was semi-industrial, in the sense that, you know, that he used mass-produced images like that postcard which he reworked, or the urinal which we know as Fountain, the ready-made piece. Those, like Warhol's mass-reproduced piece, or the screen print. Having problems talking. The screen prints of Warhol that looked like, you know, mass-reproduced artworks, and which were to some degree mass-reproduced, and the Brillo pad boxes he made. I think, yeah, they definitely played a role. All these things they paved the way towards the meme, towards, you know, an artwork which is not related to kind of any kind of high cultural frame of reference. Sorry, Bobby, you still with us?
I'm still here, yeah.
I'm having tech issues here. That's why I was going a bit quiet. We have a tweet which is displayed on this Freeze magazine page, and basically it's an exchange, and it says, "Art institutions, would you work for us for free?" And then, like me, I say, "What? No, that sounds so exploitative." And the institution says, "What if we pay you minimum wage and give 10% off at the museum cafe?" And then they're like, "Yeah, you son of a bitch, I'm in." So, I mean, not really a meme, but then of course it is in a sense, because it has 3,000 likes. So a meme means something that goes viral. So in a sense, something becomes a meme, whether it's designed in the sense we understand today a meme as a kind of JPEG, which has been manufactured on Photoshop or something similar. Doesn't have to be that. It could just be something that goes viral. And actually, it's been liked by my own brother, who's an artist, funnily enough. At the bottom there, it says liked by Watsoid, Ian Watson.
So also, Mike, was this so this artist, is it true then that he has a show at a prestigious art institution? Is it the Baltic? No, the Barbican.
Who do you mean by this artist?
Frieze magazine, at Frieze magazine.
I don't know. Have you read that somewhere?
Yeah, if you go to his account again, at Frieze magazine, go to the top.
Yeah.
And then go to the LinkedIn, maybe.
Linktree. Yeah. A website.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, maybe it was another prank, but I looked into it and it seemed to be.
Sem. I don't know how you pronounce this, but okay, Seme. That probably means something. I'm totally missing the point. But okay, Seme is an artist and creator with a background in anthropology. He is known for running the art meme page Frieze magazine. He currently works for Documenta 15 as a curatorial assistant. Well, it seems quite possibly, yes. He has shows, exhibitions, Barbican. Yeah, solo exhibition at Barbican.
Go to the link.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is quite interesting because it's like the establishment, of course, if we're not like just following some sort of elaborate prank, let's imagine that we're not, because actually like the website, it seems like the art newspaper have covered it, unless of course like this is all like more prank stuff. Because
no, I think they're probably just, the artist probably just is an artist. Yeah, the meme admin is an artist. Yeah, it seems to me to be real.
But so what do you think about like that kind of work being institutionalized? Does that kind of take the edge off of it, take the power away from it, or does it give it more power? I mean, of course, like it gives it a bigger audience, and it gives it like a critical perspective, and it gives it credibility.
It does. It does raise some interesting questions. Yeah, I think I always worry that the art world would then kind of, somehow ruin what is good about memes. I mean, I think that sounds, maybe a bit snobby of me, but it's actually, I hope the reverse. I fear that the art world snobbery will somehow infect meme culture, and also monetize it, which is a worrying thing about NFTs. Although I don't think NFTs are inherently worrying, but if you think about NFTs, so this kind of form of selling digital artworks and selling them as individual pieces that can be verified as individual pieces, thus making it possible, to make money off memes. This does really lend itself to a complete monetization of the internet, especially if you see kind of the direction the internet has gone from being this kind of thing for everyone, which is incredibly free and open, to the situation where we're all feeding into data capitalism whenever we make anything, even if we make very anti-capitalist statements. This does suggest that NFT technology meeting up with memes might lead to a situation where memes are commercialized on a large scale, and it would be the art world partly behind that. And you can see how much the art world has embraced NFT. And NFTs had a huge potential for allowing how could you say, for getting rid of the middleman, getting rid of the expert, by getting rid of people in the art world and allowing people just to sell their work directly online, digital work directly online, and somehow the art world's kind of stuck itself right in the middle there, and is at the forefront of pushing NFTs. So all of this put together concerns me. Obviously, art shows, including internet culture and memes, are one way that the meme sphere can be kind of softened and brought into the art sphere. However, I think that it's impossible for the art world to dominate the meme sphere. It's just too big, and so much of it just doesn't give a damn about the art world. I mean, you have like things like this meme page we're looking at, and you have a kind of trendy meme sphere dedicated to philosophy, which I'm kind of involved in. I'm not trying to be trendy at all. But you have like just most of the internet isn't that at all. It's absolute nonsense, but it's also brilliant because it's nonsense. I like looking at a lot of the really crappy pages. They say like, look at this. This celebrity now. This was 20 years ago. What's happened to them now? And you go through like 50 different celebrities on a really badly made web page, which is almost impossible to navigate. But if you can get through it, you see them like side by side, as they were in 1980 and as they are now. And it is rubbish, but I can get really lost in that like a wormhole, and that kind of thing. The normie internet, normie meaning like normal people, I actually quite like, and I think that it will be impossible to supplant that. And actually, the radicalism of the internet, it really resides in those aspects of the internet. People who like mod cars, who do up their own cars on YouTube. That's fucking huge, and it's nothing to do with the art world. And I've seen artists who have like got involved in that culture and brought it into the museum, but they'll never be as big as that culture itself. Whenever that happens, it's like the art world is trying to co-opt something that's actually cooler than the art world. And you really see it with curators. Like anything they see, it's like, they might see somebody performing Tai Chi or some interesting dance routine, and they'll be like, hey, could you come down to the museum? And somehow, could you do that in a museum? And you see their eyes light up. But it's when they see something that is radically unaware of itself, that is not trying to be cool, they need to somehow get that in the art museum. And that's, I think, what's happening with memes. But the thing is, they can't actually do it because, as you said before, the art world is tiny. And here's where the contradiction resides, that the art world wants to be tiny because it wants to, it's full of people who want to feel special. So by its own rules, it can't ever really supplant the things it tries to bring into its sphere. You see what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's got something to do with this like high art and popular culture debate, because the art museums, of course, like we were saying, I mean, they're state owned, so essentially they're sort of like owned by the people. The collection is owned by the people, but then you have the vast majority of the society who basically they don't really care about that kind of art. They find it snobby and annoying because they're not interested in Marcel Duchamp or trying to get to the bottom of that stuff. It's quite cerebral, or even like Impressionism or Van Gogh. They seem to be able to appreciate like Renaissance art, even if like they don't have the experience of seeing it. It's just considered like so much part of the canon, and it's so obvious that it's meticulous that people just, the general public seems to even get that kind of art or accept it. But I don't know if that was exactly the same thing at the at the actual time that it was made. Probably it was, but I don't know how many peasants were going to see the Sistine Chapel. I'm not sure. Maybe religion kind of guided people into that zone, but there would have always been gypsies that had like their own roaming culture and that were not engaging in that so-called high art. But then, so with the popular culture, the museums are always trying to get popular culture into the museum so that they get more and more people in, a wider variety of people, so they can say, this is a place for all of us, when in fact, it's not really. I mean, it's kind of like a place for curious people to go, and occasionally you will have like an artist who's not really from a family who's that interested in high art that may go in there. I mean, I'm one of those, I think you are as well, where we came across art in maybe like a serendipitous sort of chance encounter, and then we sort of
serendipitous.
And then it sort of like opens up our curiosity, and then we get obsessed. We move on from something like, I don't know, video games or football or Barbie dolls, whatever, and then like you get a new obsession, and then that can end up having a huge influence on your life.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, yeah, certainly the art world kind of brings people in that way. I mean, that's, as you say, more the role of museums and state museums. But they're very. I think people are very much aware that they're coming in, at the entry level. They're at the monastery sweeping the steps before they're allowed in to begin their spiritual practice. If you were going to compare it to, Karate Kid or something, becoming a, I don't know why I compare it to that, but it's that kind of feeling, that you have to do a certain amount of that before you're allowed in, and you probably won't be allowed in. And actually, most people are really aware that you're kind of a lay person. You're not really in the art world, but we're going to show you some art, and you can kind of be in awe of that art, and you can look up to it, and then you can buy an umbrella with a print of that art on it, and you can walk around with it. But those people are always going to be a bit like, oh wow, art, I wish I could do that, or or something. There's certainly a feeling of that being something special, a bit like when you go in a church and things feeling kind of untouchable, and there being a certain mystery. So yeah, certainly, certainly a number of people are going to look at that and get inspired by it, and then want to be an artist, and that's kind of where the trouble might begin. That's where the trouble begins for many of them, because it's like that's a lifetime of destitution and disappointment, apart from those few who get really wealthy. But then I think that the ones who get really wealthy and do really well are probably pretty cynical themselves. They're probably pretty jaded and fed up with the whole thing. But yeah, just to be cynical. But here's a thing there. It says how to get into art parties, a guide, just to kind of looking at this. Oh, but actual fact, it's not even oh no, it is a thing. I thought actually I've been tricked, and it's not. You can't even click through it, and I'm kind of become part of the joke. Okay, you can click through it. So how to get into parties, a guide, art parties, a guide. I haven't actually looked at this yet, but I thought it might be fun to go through, because it kind of also probably brings us on to the elitism of the art world. How to get into art parties, a guide. I should be on the guest list, the invite. I don't really know what they're getting at here. Okay, it's an invite on a phone. Okay, all right, there's a number of things you can say. So when you get to the door of the art party and you can't get in, you might say something like, we're with, and then insert the name of the artist. So you're like, oh, I'm with Damien Hirst, let me in. I'm one of the artists. That might get you in. I'm from insert big institution. So I think, you might say Tate Modern, but you might say Frieze magazine, the real Frieze magazine. That always worked, but I was working for Frieze magazine when I did it. But the thing is, if they suspect that you're not, then you're in trouble. I think so people often check these kind of things. Do you know Christine? Just something random like that. Show a screenshot of an email. I forgot my phone, or just slowly walk past the reception. Actually, when it was coming up to the Venice Biennale, I was getting these invites for these exclusive openings, and they were just emails saying, Leah Rimmer would be delighted if you would join us for the opening of Gian Maria Tosati's Italian Pavilion. It just occurred to me I could have sent that to anyone. It might have my name at the top, but I'm still pretty sure, the email probably would have sufficed for nearly anyone to get in. So I don't know. I mean, there is this thing of like exclusivity. I think you often find that they only want to keep the numbers down. Certainly they don't want anyone in, but they're banking on mostly people who come will be people with it who have been invited. So you're immediately cutting out the hoi polloi, i.e. the mass, stopping like some homeless person coming in and nicking the champagne. But beyond that, they don't really mind as long as they get the 200 people coming.
Yeah, I would just add to that I think this press pass idea can work pretty well. So if there's any artists or people interested in the arts out there that are trying to get in for free. I would say I've heard that like if you make a little press card and you put your photo, you have your photo and it just says like theory and practice on it, put it around your neck, look professional, then maybe that will get you in. Maybe Mike, maybe you can send a little JPEG of theory and practice that people can print out in color and stick it inside.
Or down and out in the art world.
In fact, look, I've got one here with
podcast name. Oh yeah, whatever that thing is called, a lanyard. For some reason they call those things lanyards. It's a strange name.
Or a student card. Students can get into stuff because you could say that, it's part of your research project or something like that.
Yeah, for sure. I don't think they're particularly trying to keep everyone out, but they just don't want everyone in. They're not like, you can't come in at all, but they're a bit like, we want a certain, level of middle class art world people in our shows. We don't want just any person turning up. Then they can get kind of weird. I was thrown out of the Finnish Pavilion party once in around 2013. Me and an artist I was working with, the security guys who were from a local, quite serious security firm. Somehow, for some reason, I already knew who these guys were, because I think our artwork we were planning was based around security concerns. We ended up Googling local security companies, and we got this one that had like ex-soldiers and stuff running it, and you actually have photos of these people that they could be chosen. You could hire this security guard or this security guard, and somehow I was like, oh shit, I think I know this guy, and they were serious guys. They were ex-army, and they just decided they didn't want me and this artist in the exhibition opening anymore. And I was writing for a number of prominent art magazines at the time, and I was curating at that Biennale, and my friend knew the Finnish culture minister, not the guy I was getting chucked out with, but another friend, Finnish guy who was there. But they were just like, no, you're going out, we don't want you here. And they just, something to do with our clothes, something to do with the way we were speaking. Maybe we looked like we drunk too much, but I don't think we had at that point. And that was interesting. So I think, they want a certain type of person at their openings on the whole. And actually, I think that is at the end of like this little routine of how to get in. Yeah. So I guess the thing before. Oh, why am I unable to click now on any? Oh no, hang on, because you click these things on the far side. Okay. Oh no, there you go. This is part of the same sequence. Venice Biennale would be like you come across an acquaintance on the street, small talk for 90 seconds, awkward silence. Let's catch up soon. It's actually, this is one of the following memes. All right, I'm just being so meme illiterate or Instagram illiterate today. Anyway, it's one of the following memes. So that's what happens at the Biennale. Yeah, it's pretty awful. Yeah. And they mean the Biennale opening weekend. There's everyone from the art world there, and you have to basically end up talking to people you don't want to talk to. Okay, artists be like, I know a spot, and then take you here. Okay, I guess it's more just a comment on creepy artists, or I know what it's really commenting on is just, I guess, artists, after openings or some point, be like, hey, come back and drink something, then I'd be like, take you to some dingy squat or something.
Yeah, they all seem quite ambivalent. These very quickly made, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's all very simple stuff. I suppose they're kind of funny, and it's just consistency, and the fact of the artist using the name Freeze Magazine, which I suppose seems kind of. Somehow it's like sticking two fingers up or one finger, it's like sticking, it's like making a swear sign at the establishment, so yeah. How long has this account been going? I think if we scroll down, we'd be scrolling forever.
Instagram is a bit like annoying.
This post is January 14th.
It's a bit difficult to navigate Instagram on a laptop or desktop. It's really like they really want you to be using it on your phone, don't they? There's a Duchamp above.
Although it is upload now. You can upload to a desktop now, which you couldn't before. I know I'm trying to find like the beginning of this page, but it could be scrolling for a long time, so I'm not going to bother now. But I'd say it's been going for a fair time. But yeah, I think it's quite a funny page. I think it does its job well of poking fun at the art world.
It's got the Mike Watson stamp of approval. This meme account.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good meme account, but I'm not sure they would care. I'm not sure they should care even. But yeah, I think it's good. Yeah, so given my experience in memes in the art world, yeah, this one will do. I mean, I think I've been talking. The thing that we're talking about is like our memes, the new art world. And I think the thing is, they are the new art world. If you're talking about an art world being a world of art for the whole world, art being for all, then the art world's definitely is hands down lost at that aim. So is L from Discord reminds me of Philosophy Twitter. Yeah, it is a bit like that. Yeah, that's just a comment we have coming in. So
is it also, Mike? I just wanted to say, sorry to interrupt you. Is it also like another example of what we were saying earlier on, where the art world is trying to incorporate other parts of culture? Like meme culture is kind of like comedy as well, isn't it? Right? It's almost like visual stand-up, isn't it?
Yeah, unless it's political. But yeah, on the whole, I think it's based around jokes. Yeah. Meme culture is, but then not everything that is memed, nothing that becomes a meme in the literal sense of a viral image is, comes from this sphere of like, funny JPEGs that we call memes. Of course, a lot of them are related to fashion and revolve around people like the Kardashians. But yeah, what we're talking about now is this kind of meme that we're looking at that has come to be known literally as a meme or internet meme. They tend to be funny, yeah, and I suppose that is something that the art world would like to kind of like embrace. But going back to what I was saying, in terms of the central question of this episode, are memes becoming the new art world? They are becoming the new art world if the art world is a space where people make art in the world. That most of what's made, I guess, now, most of what's made is made as internet memes or otherwise other types of internet posts that could become memes. And of course, you can incorporate also YouTube into that. So this is where creativity is happening more than the art world, and the art world won't ever co-opt that. I don't think it is too big for the art world to co-opt, but the art world won't give up its hold on art, its exclusivity, because it's a business. It's like fine wine. Actually, it's like this whole thing of you need a whole industry of wine tasters and connoisseurs who will attest to this wine being better than that wine. And actually, at the higher levels, apparently, there's been blind testing done several times that have shown that the experts don't know what they're talking about. That if they keep being given the same wine again and again, but told it's a different wine, they will keep writing down completely different wine notes, completely different tasting notes. I'm reading a book now in which this is mentioned, and it's the same with it's the same with a lot of fields actually. That when you get to the higher levels, you can't really distinguish between things in terms of quality. So what you need is a number of experts who will claim that this or that artist is better, or this or that wine or whatever. So I mean that's essential because people are trying to make money out of it. And so you obviously need a very strict strata mechanism of stratification where you're saying this one is better than that one is better than that one. So you can justify paying this much for a certain one. Now the memes don't lend themselves to that. So it will never be admitted that the meme world is the world where art is happening now. But the other question that we have really is going back to the beginning, is there an issue of quality raised, or is there a crisis of quality raised by there being being so many people making memes? And I guess you say it's too early to see if quality has been improved or heightened or lessened by the amount of artists there are today in the art world. And I agree. I don't know why you said it, but if we think to what is considered to be great now from the the Baroque period, you can look at Velasquez and say, well, that's great, but I don't know that everyone then was saying Velasquez is the greatest artist. There would have been a number of other contenders, but now Velasquez comes to mind immediately. So certainly, I don't think now we can say, to what degree art has improved given the amount of extra artists there are in operation. But if you apply that to memes rather than the art world, I don't know where we are, because I would say quite definitely the quality is dropped if you're thinking about quality in the old aesthetic terms. Or what would you say about that?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, okay. Well, that was concise. I wish I could be that concise. Now I'm out of breath now. I hardly took a breath for the last 3 minutes.
Well, maybe we should bring it to an end now.
Well, yeah, okay. Although I want to just say one more thing about that. That is that if you're talking about, do memes match the quality of the art world and of the art world historically, of artists historically? I think we have to realign what we mean by quality and what we're looking for. I think you can have a situation where many more people are engaged in an activity, and the quality declines in the old sense, but you are given something in another sense. I suppose that is a sense of democracy, so to speak, although it's an inadequate term. But I guess what we do get is we get a situation actually where it's like it has this kind of thing of like monkeys on computers. If you had like infinite amount of monkeys for an infinite amount of time writing on they used to say typewriters, and actually I haven't heard it in the computer age. It's almost disappeared, probably because it's almost what's happening. But if you had an infinite amount of monkeys typing on their phones or on laptops for an infinite amount of time, one of them would end up writing out the Bible in complete order. That's something that's said. It used to be said a lot. It used to be said when people were stoned or drunk. It always came up every night you went out, nearly, if you were around people who like talking about philosophy. And that's the thing, because what you'd also get is you get a number of things that weren't the Bible that were probably even better, or better than Ulysses or better than works of Shakespeare. And that would be the benefit in having infinite amount of monkeys typing for an infinite amount of time on computers. And in a way, that's what the meme sphere is, much more than what the art world is. So that's where maybe the quality could get thrown up accidentally, because you just have so many people producing stuff. And I think that is worth considering. And you're right, yeah, maybe we should wrap up. That's my final thought. I'm Mike Watson. I've been here with Bobby Dowler. We are down and out in the art world, and we've been speaking about memes and the art world, and looking at the account freeze_magazine on Instagram. We're very thankful to our viewers, and yep, see you shortly. See you when we next broadcast. Okay.
Bye, everyone.
Bye bye.